From the 305 to the 303, welcome to TCSP. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Brian and the Casually Serious Band. Oh, man alive. Real quick, before we get into anything, have you heard anything from Dr. Brian in the last, I don't know, 6 months at all besides what he posted on social media? Because he was supposed to get back to me a while ago with another theme song for another show that I have to keep in the fucking pocket because he has no theme song for me. But I'm just wondering, have you heard anything from Dr. Brian? I feel like he's back to being his old hermit self, man. He's locked away making riffs.
Man, if that were only the case, that man is touring. That man is touring. He is all over the place right now. Now that things are open, he's doing all types of stuff because he's a great musician, and that's what he should be doing. So he's doing those things.
He's doing the Steely thing and the other. Okay, so all this stuff. Okay, for some reason, and I don't know why, I just assumed he didn't have time to do that full time. Like he was just like called up, like, yo, we need Dr. Brian, dude. He's the shredder of the freaking decade. Like, pick him up. I thought it was just one-off dates to get him. If he's touring, that makes complete sense. All right, I feel like an ass now.
He's also a professor at a major university, so he handles that work. And then, when he's done with that, which school is out at this time, he can concentrate more on the stuff he really, really enjoys. Well, he loves his schoolwork, obviously. But he's a musician, man. He's loving it. We're not that important. We're peons. We're peons in comparison.
Exactly. And I'm basically trying to get him to completely plagiarize somebody else's work with his work. So he probably wasn't on board with it, right?
How's he not jumping on that? I don't understand why that's like the first gig he shoots for. I don't get it.
I don't know either, man. But at any rate, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you as always for coming and hanging out with us at the Casually Serious Podcast, aka TCSP. We tend to shorten stuff because we're Americans and we like putting things in 3- and 4-letter packages. And if you don't like it, go back to Russia. We don't give a shit,
Right.
But today we're going all sort of 360 irony because we're talking about the ups and downs of social media and the internet from its inception. And the only way to give you this information is through social media and the internet right now, which is exactly how we're getting it. So if anybody read my cute little quip about us talking about some stuff we probably have no power to change, that is one of those things that we have no power to change. But without further ado, let's get into it right now. Ken, man, you had another kind of burning desire, as we always talk about before the show starts, and before we start to this roundtable and decide what we're going to talk about. You automatically were like, social distortion. The internet and social media and how it's corrupting and everything is falling apart and it's hell and brimstone and whatnot. So,
well, I don't know if I'm taking it there just yet. But I did feel like this deserved a good discussion, and I mostly because of our age, and I feel like we're right. We lived this. We did, in meaningful years. We weren't 7 or 8. Like we were in junior high school into high school. And getting into our early college days when all of this started to I'm just talking the internet and getting cell phones, because that's the beginning of this, right? I mean, you had to have the internet first, and then everybody had to have computers in their hand really for a lot of this to work. I mean, social media, obviously you can do off laptops and desktops and whatnot, but come on, man, it's all about what we have on our phone. That's when the usage started to really jump. So that's where I felt like this topic is meaningful, and as Bob so eloquently put, what better way to bring it to you than through social media?
My very, very first sort of introduction to internet on a social scale was right around 1996 or 97. I was leaving Coconut Grove. I lived right behind Cocoa Walk. I don't know if you remember that. But I lived right behind Cocoa Walk and soon getting ready to get married and take off to Texas. And I remember at the time talking to a friend of mine's ex-girlfriend that was like, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in so long, blah blah blah. Hit me up at this chat room." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And then, she obviously, it was a long correspondence. We couldn't go back and forth with that. So I was like, "Well, I guess I've just got to go to this address." And then I found out her name, and I just kind of asked, like, "How do I know this is you?" And she said a few things. Da da da. I was like, "All right, well, that's you." But from there on out, I started talking to. But then I remember feeling like, this is kind of creepy, because I can't tell the girl I'm living with, who I'm about to marry, that I'm doing this, because it's going to sound all kinds of effed up. And just the fact that I'm doing it already feels like it's. So I just remember it being sort of a real creepy thing at first, and I just stayed the hell away from it. Like, after that, I didn't have a lot of social interaction until like MySpace, and between that, LimeWire was my gig. So getting a bunch of MP3s and videos from LimeWire, that was my stuff. But in terms of the social beginnings of it in 96, 97, it was just AOL chat rooms, and a couple I was in and out of, and I was just like, you know what, this is a little too weird. I've got to get out of this. So
yeah, and that ultimately is what we had to start with to get to where we are today. And like we were talking about a little bit earlier, having to kind of follow through with what we've seen from the beginning to now versus what kids today are seeing from birth, essentially. So they don't know any of what it took to get to this point. So for somebody like myself, who, later on I'll update my MySpace account, but that's kind of where I am and stopped. I had to get dragged into these things from other people to even get on a show like this to understand it. I'm so inept in this manner. But my 7-year-old has got Roblox and these things where she's got all types of stuff going on, and they sit and watch each other play video games. It's different. It's different. It's so virtual. It's just not, there's no tangibility to anything anymore. There's nobody that can just, hey, pat your friend on the back or something, or you're not really friends, you're just kind of grouped in this odd, scenario of people that are all kind of chatting in maybe a chat room while they watch something on a screen. But there's communication without anything really being said of any substance. So what does that really count as? Do we feel like our kids are getting the right amount of socialization in something like this? And I'm not necessarily stating that for the topic for the show, but it's just for me thinking about when I was younger. It was just high school when the internet was just kind of getting introduced. I remember my first cell phones, I think, was in maybe my senior year of high school, the old style ones with the hard antenna, the external one you couldn't even push down or do anything with, little Ericssons or something like that. I think they were like 2 for $1, and they were like $1 a minute to talk on. But that's all they did. I mean, they were for emergencies, and you'd have a phone. But I know the brick earlier. My dad had that too, so that was always crazy. My dad was a tech guy, but even when tech was silly, we had the big floppy disks that were like yay high, and that was tech. We had the dial-up really early, so we had a lot in our family, I think, before other people. But to me, I didn't know what that was all about, nor did I care. That was my dad's stuff. It wasn't interesting to me. So until about what you said, mid 90s or so, when things started picking up and most of communication started getting sent on the internet, because there was always an internet, but that base of sending the amount of information on it that they did took a huge jump from 95 to 2001, and then the amount of people in that time frame that jumped on board too. So that huge influx, I think, gets us to where we are today, and all the competing social media platforms out there that are trying to get a little piece of you to make sure you come over and check out what they're doing.
And don't forget, and I'm glad that you mentioned it, at the very least, your kiddos sitting and watching each other playing video games, because video games it's a massive role in the expansion of video online and things like that. Because a lot of people don't remember it. I was actually one of the first people I remember in my group of friends. So all of my close friends, including you, anybody else you knew at one point, I was either trying to get you to play a video game, or we were going to play a video game to kill some time.
Or we were trading. We did a lot of trades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Someone needed money. We were selling video games.
Yeah. Some people were in the games, and there were people like, our boy Jay, who comes on quite a bit. He's not into video games at all. He doesn't care about them. It doesn't have that they're clicking there. But at the same time, I was one of the first people that had a PlayStation 2 with the dial-up modem on the back, so I could plug Ethernet cable into my dial-up modem on my PS2 and play golf and Madden with friends, and then eventually Call of Duty Big Red One, Call of Duty 2 Big Red One, which was I think 2003, 2004, and that's the first introduction I had to some people that I've known since then up until this point, that I have their cell phone numbers that are on my Facebook account. I know them so well, and I've never met them in my entire life. We're talking 15, sometimes 20 years of gaming with a lot of these core members of my clan, WMD, shout out to War's Most Decorated, to my clan. And it was, and I didn't fight it the entire time, but as I look back on it now, a lot of people who had nothing to do with that or didn't really, they were either weren't gaming or weren't socializing over the internet, they really couldn't understand that. They were like, how do you call this person a friend? I'm like, well, we have each other's backstory. We know what to say and not say to each other. We probably know like what race you are, what a lot of shit that you probably don't really know about someone right away. We would get out during the course of killing each other over an hour or two. You know, like it's amazing how close I am with a lot of these folks, Merc, Ronan, Duke, a lot of these guys, just so many guys I can name that are just friends of mine up to this point right now. And it's all virtual. And I mean, obviously I know where they live and they're real people, but they're crafted friendships, and they started in a headset, and that is it. Like we played for years before we were like, all right, I'll give you my real name and you catch me on Facebook, because we played for years before Facebook was really big, you know, like, but that's another part of it all. And I find that to be good, but damn it, man, there's a lot of really bad shit on the internet and what the internet brings in terms of taking your privacy and everything that we're doing right now. There's so many levels to it. If you haven't watched The Social Dilemma on Netflix, ladies and gentlemen, watch that damn show. Find a way to watch it, and it will completely change the way you log in. You're gonna actually probably step back from Facebook and other shit for like a day, and then you'll go right back to that shit. But you'll freak out a little because you'll start realizing how when you say certain things, this pops up on your ad feed. You didn't type it anywhere, but you said it. Like a lot of this stuff is very invasive, and that's the stuff that I don't love. But that's also the stuff, like I said earlier, that we can't do shit about. And as I said to you before this show, you and I, our generation is the last group of people that will ever have this conversation, because after this, it's normalized. But up until this point, cameras weren't everywhere. We were riding our bicycles when we were freaking playing around as kids. Like there's a lot of invasive stuff going on that's connected to the internet that I can't get down with, but I can't fight. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to stop someone from selling your information? Because you clicked yes on the fucking waiver, on whatever app you said yes to, your info is going to get sold to. So I know that's a big leap I just took from the beginning of the internet to now, but the fact that it became profit at some point, and as it always does, when it becomes for profit, that's when shit goes real bad, and it's out of control right now.
No, that's absolutely true. And I mean, it's the information that they are getting has a lot to do with what you would put out there or what you choose to put out there too. But there's stuff that you don't realize that they're also taking as well. And obviously that gets into all types of algorithms that they do, which we could care less about. But there is something you can do about it, and then that's just never be a part of it. You know, don't have any accounts, don't do any of it. You know, none of it, done of it. And I know some folks that do.
That's insane.
You know? it is, but I know some people that actually they refrain from. They have nothing to do with this. So, you know, getting back a little bit to what you were saying before too, with the virtual and becoming friends with people like that, and even with what my daughter's doing, I'm okay with all that, but I feel like it's still got to be some kind of moderation. Like you can't be like, that's my whole group of friends. You know, I don't have a place to go to. Like we used to play video games all the time, but it would be going to somebody's house and we would be in their house and we'd be playing video games together, you know? So there was this physical thing that kind of went on too, you know? And the virtual thing is cool because, you could reach more people and I think that's awesome, but people still need to get out. They need to be able to go out and do stuff, you know? And look, my brother-in-law is one of those people. I didn't want to name my name. Actually, I wasn't thinking about it.
Back then. If we were sitting inside of a house when we were 16, 17 years old playing video games, we would do that for a period of time, and then we would go out somewhere, like you said, eventually. So it would be a section. It would be more of like a private social event for us. But like you're saying right now it's basically the basis It's the only, in some occasion, social interaction a lot of people are getting, and that's a very, very dangerous thing. That's the weird thing about it all.
I think so too. And I mean, you've got some people, obviously, they've made their careers from this, and there's people that are doing this and they're creating this ability to kind of make their own, self-worth out of whatever it is, whether it's your body, your voice, your whatever it is that you're doing. And honestly, for that, I think it's great. I mean, I think it really gives kind of like everybody a platform in one way. Look at us. I mean, and you wouldn't think of being able to just do your own show, a podcast. What's that about? I worked hard and went to, schools to try to get on the radio, to do some sports radio. And it took a long time just to get to that. And I was at somebody else's mercy to when I was going to be on, how long I was going to be on, and even the stuff I could say. So, being able to do something like this and say whatever the heck I want and be able to speak my mind and do so in front of, whatever it is, whether it's 2 people or 2,000, it's cool. I like it. It's fun. It's enjoyable. So I like the fact that people can do that. And whether it's doing something like this or selling your products or trying to get people to see your art, whatever it is, it gives these people an outlet for that, which I think is very positive. But it's more in line with what the kids are learning and what they do and how they utilize it and how parents kind of mitigate that use, I think, is what everybody is kind of grappling with now.
Well, the tech, the need for tech and the need for the next version of tech is really not anything new. And I know parents can think about it as something that's a new thing and a new craze, but it really isn't. It's just the same thing as we had with like Garbage Pail Kids. We want the next issue, and it's always about getting the next one and the next one and the upgrade. It's just more of on a larger scale now. And this country, America, is all about having the nice things and the great things, but the slick thing about telecommunications, which was something that AT&T, all these things when calling collect was the thing to do, they really tapped into your need to want to reach out and touch someone, and speak to somebody in your family, and so like that need to be in touch with someone was how they sold the package. The package, unbeknownst to you, was billing you every minute eventually, and all this other stuff that came to be known as cell phone packages and shit like that. But eventually they tied that into it. And I always said to myself, well, how can a child have a cell phone? But then when you realize the only friggin' way you're going to be able to get access to your kid fast is through that cell phone, then you got to get your kid the cell phone, dude. Like, so then it becomes like a no decision thing. You just, like you said, you just got to wait till what year and what age do you want to wait before they, so they can get social tendencies, obviously, before they start replacing those social tendencies with their phone. That's a big thing right there, man. It's not one of the things I knew I would ever have to think about, because I, probably will never have kids. But at the same time, that's a tough portion of it all, man, because you can't control it. It's out of your hands now.
And as far as they know, this is normal. They see this all the time. They see everybody walking around staring at their phones everywhere they go. And then when they're at work, they're staring at a screen. So, that's all that kids see. And how do we learn anything? This is what we do. We watch our parents and we see what our parents are doing. And that's what they're doing. So everybody, they get, a lot of kids just give them the phone to keep them quiet, whatever it is. So, and I don't mind that to an extent. I do it as a parent. I'm just saying that there has to be some sort of moderation to it, like anything. It can't be good for your kids' eyes. I mean, you can get into all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, we got to really be able to say, go outside. I mean, my parents would do that. We were inside all day, playing Madden, which we would do all the time on my Nintendo, because I wasn't as lucky as Bob to have good systems. We would get kicked out. We would get kicked out. They'd go outside. My parents would go, do what? I don't care. Just go outside. Do it outside. You need to be in the sun. You need to go outside. You need fresh air. You need to go do things like that. Stop staring at the screen and, playing a terrible football game. You go back to look at what Tecmo Bowl was compared to today, but still, good times. I feel that as a parent now, the responsible thing to do is to obviously allow your kid to be a part of this, because it's something that all kids are doing, but you don't want to let them go too far with it. Like, you have to have some limitations to it because of what's out there. And especially as your kids get into the teen years, and you need to be a little more careful with some of the sites that they're going to be visiting and some of the things they're going to be sharing with their friends. So I feel like we all need to have a good understanding of what's happening with our kids in the social media world and be able to at least limit them from doing certain things. My kid at 7, is in some chat rooms and some video game, And I'm like, who is this? She's like, I don't know, it's this kid. I'm like, I don't know. That's not a kid. Who knows if that's a kid? So we like shut down the chat thing in that game. Like, this is not, you can play this game. There's no chatting going on with who you think the kid is on the other side. So, but you got to keep an eye on that, man. Otherwise, I would have known. The kids next door said, oh, download this thing. And the kids love it. And then all of a sudden, there's weird people talking to my daughter, man.
I have a super, no good. I have a super nerd ass story. Okay, so listen to this. My friends and I, can't nerds. Shut up, Meg. Yeah, all of my friends and I were very. I would surround myself with responsible gamers when we were, because my clan was all about.
What does that mean? Never cheating. Responsible. Oh, okay. Never cheating. Okay.
Yeah, never cheating. Like good game. All this shit. Like, play the game and win within the parameters and stuff like that. So,
right.
And then if you heard something screwed up in the background, then you then inquire about it. You know what I mean? Like, because shit goes on in the headset that you don't always hear in real life, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, some of us are playing a game, and then in a party comes this kid, and we start hearing him, just trying to get along. And he sounded super professional for being what I think at the time was like 9. So, and then some dude on the other end was like, hey, man, F you, F this, and just started getting really like racy and sexual with a young kid. And for anyone freaking out, that's just how internet people are, plus video gaming. It's just like the vulgarity, there's no levels. Like, you can say whatever you want to a kid if the kid's there. So basically what I did was, hey, kid, do you have a mom or dad next to you? Yeah, I do. Put that man on the headset right now for me right now, if you could. So I got this guy on the headset. So I talked to him for about a minute. I started saying, yo, man, like, how are you letting this kid get on this game? Da, 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 da. And he's like, Misfit, I know you. This is SKS. So this was another guy who was in a rival clan that I knew very well, his son, running under a different name. And he was like, dude, are you seriously pulling me aside and policing? I go, look, man, if you listen to what this guy's saying in the chat right now, he's saying a lot of shit I don't think your kid needs to hear. And he started hearing what this kid was saying, and he was like, oh, dude, thank you so much. And I'm like, listen, I know that you're probably the same age as I am and blah, blah, blah. You got a kid and whatnot, but you need to pay attention to what your kid's doing, even in these video games, like you just said. And this is 2000, let's call this 2006.
Wow.
You know what I mean? 2005, like, we were like, yo, you've got to make sure that you use the headset. You let your kid play, but you use the headset, because what they're hearing is really more. I know it's part of the game and all that, but you've got to find that in between point, man, because
right.
The kid was hearing some shit that like you shouldn't hear at a bar, let alone for a 10-year-old kid. So it was just a coincidence that it was a friend of ours' kid. But like you say, man, to police, it's part of like, it's already part of culture right now, and I liken it to when my mom used to just plop me in front of a TV, like the beginning of Dream On that we discussed during our sitcom. Plop me in front of a TV just to shut the hell up, dude. Whatever, you have carte blanche. Here's the remote, or at the time, reach for the channel and turn it. But that was our babysitter, our pacifier, and yeah, that's not a great way to do it either. I was raised in a home that my mom would rather have me there in front of her than anywhere else. So it's the opposite of what you're saying, and that's where my love for video gaming probably was spawned. But at the same time, there was a need. You've got to find a way to be social, and I always found ways to do that. That has got to be insane as a parent right now, to try and juggle all that, along with making sure your kid gets like other human time.
Right.
And then maybe during this pandemic where you couldn't go anywhere, dude, that's like
it kind of really made it very difficult. There's no doubt, and I give it up to all the parents out there that had to deal with that, and that worked to make it happen. It did what you had to do. Everybody out there, I have one, and there's 2 of us, and it seems like a lot. So anyone that's got 2 or more, more power to you guys. But still, this is something I think that its comment just came across that more kids are playing because of COVID this year. And again, if it brings them into a gaming situation that even provides some sort of a social setting for them that could be positive, and they could meet people as Bob was saying, that for many years you create this kind of bond. And it's different, obviously, than the kids on the block, but that's still a cool network to be able to have, so long as you also have kids on the block that you're friends with too, or you can go somewhere and hang out outside, and even if it's just to play kickball in the front with your dad, like I did on Father's Day with my daughter, which was fun. So I mean, you got to do stuff like that. You have to be able to again just moderate. I think more than anything else, not to sit there and talk to everybody and tell everybody how to parent. But I just feel like the more moderation for the kids as they're younger will help them a little bit to understand what that means, so they can move forward and still have casual conversations with people in person and not have that feel awkward, because that's almost how it is for us. Doing stuff online and doing stuff like this is awkward, where for the kids this is going to be no problem, but speaking to human beings in person is more of an awkward or less done situation. So it's something you use less, I should say. So
right.
That's no good at any point. Like we don't need that. I notice it more with people not making eye contact, not looking at people when you talk to them. What's that?
Do we not? Like, if you think about this, what you're saying is true only in line with the thoughts, the thought process and the way we grew up. So here's the thing. Right. The question I'm posing right now is, do they need to be as social as we were? Like, because the deal is this, like everyone wanted to have a button they can push to get some shit in the mail. We've got that right now, dude. So right. No matter what you want, that will pop on your doorstep at any moment in time. So we've got all that shit now. They don't realize what all of that entailed. We didn't realize how many planes, trains, and automobiles that were going to be all over polluting the world because of all of it. That shit didn't really matter. Right. I don't know, man. I find it to be one of those things now. I think maybe society is leaning to be, let's say if it was at some point 90% outdoor social talking, face-to-face eye contact, I think maybe the world is finding a way to exist on 50-50.
Yeah, but that's a big number. That's a big number to not have real social interaction, though. Yes, I mean, I feel that's why you get to the point.
But what's real?
Well, yeah, but what's real is that human life becomes depreciated, because that's the way I think what's happening now. Yeah. People are devaluing human life because their images, their sounds, their voices. We're not really meeting people and seeing people and being able to interact with people. So the less people do that, the more introverted they become. And it becomes the situation where people don't know how to do this anymore. We don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to understand that we all live in a society and that we need to find a way to work this out together. And that's just in common daily consideration for people, whether it's when you're driving or doing anything anywhere, to just have common consideration for other people. And that goes a little bit to humanity and a whole different story. But still, I feel like that's
already a problem.
Right. But the more human interaction, or I should say the less human interaction we start to have, I feel like we're just making that problem even bigger, where we're going to communicate on such a different level. And human life is just devalued. I mean, you see that every day, another shooting, more people are dying. And it's almost like, well, that's what it is. And it just feels like that it's not as catastrophic when it happens anymore. You know what I mean? It's like we don't look at murders or anything as being people dying in any kinds of shootings or anything as being catastrophic anymore. The loss of life we had through, COVID, it's like, okay, that happened, but I don't know. It seems like, all right, let's move on. We go on to the next thing, That's the part that I feel like is going to be the most adversely affected. Positive sides galore, though, man, when it comes to social media, though. As we talked about a little earlier, with businesses being able to promote, people being able to show their art, and even friends being able to connect, people that haven't talked in a long time, people you consider, that maybe at one point in your life you were close friends, but, life gets in the way and you're separated. This is a great way to really be able to stay connected with certain people. Yeah. I know in my life I've appreciated having it for the most part. I don't utilize it a lot, but I like the fact that it's there, and I think it's a neat way to kind of, for people you do care about, you can always sneakily follow what's going on in their life. Is sneakily a word?
It is a word, actually.
Cool, sweet. Thanks.
Andrew, what's up, man? Andrew, you popped up. I just got done talking about you and all of the people that I've known for 15 plus years that I have never shaken hands with or anything like that. We were talking about how the internet was able to help us forge relationships, or let us forge relationships with people that we might not actually see ever in our entire lives in some odd way, and how we might be the last generation to sort of appreciate that, because, as we're saying right now, I believe that the need for face-to-face interaction has just lessened a lot. But it also, if you think about it, and I'm thinking about it from this point of view, we were pulled in, we couldn't go anywhere for a year, all this other stuff. The time I just spent in Florida was freaking amazing. Like, I've never seen water so watery. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, like, I think it just sort of gives you the ability to, as our age, know what it's like to not want to be locked down. As you get older, you start realizing why your parents were like, go outside. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of shit there to see out there. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and it's not what Facebook is. It leads you to believe, but it's one of those odd things. Like you said, I used it as a tool when I first started getting on the internet. I think the first, besides MySpace, was like Classmates. And I was trying to look for people that I hadn't spoken to in like 15 years. It was like a really fun thing to like dig through people. And I was never able to get a lot of people because I didn't want to join on to any of that stuff. But Facebook did it for me, man. Facebook was the one thing that, like, oh, okay, this is an actual picture of somebody I know. They'd hit me up, and I would be able to confirm that. And I believe that Facebook is the one thing that grabbed me, I think, more than anything. And I'm not even on there as much as a lot of people. And I've got a lot of stuff going on with the Cannabis Cowboy thing and all this other stuff. Like, and even then, I'm nowhere near on as much as some of the other people who have used it and embraced it as a business. So, like you say, there's a balance that has to be stricken somewhere in there, whether you have to go outside and talk to real people and all this other stuff. But there's also massive ways to get income sitting in front of this and doing what we're doing. By the way, this is not one of the ways we use to make income in any freaking way. This is quite the opposite. This show costs us money.
And we still love it.
We still love it. So there's ways to go out there, like we know, as a parent, you're coming from a position of, dude, I don't want my child constantly laughing and crying and stuff like that, and not experiencing that in real life with someone, because there is a definitive need as humans for us to be at the very least in the same room with each other, speaking, and it's a very important thing, I think. But what my other point is as generations go on, I don't feel like that's going to be as important later on. Like your kids' kids and your kids' kids. Like, by that point, it's like, oh, talk over the video for half the time. Oh, I don't see my cousin anymore. Yeah, you do. You talk to him on the video all the time. Like, it's just like it'll be different, but sort of the same. I don't know. We have a way of normalizing weird shit as Americans. So
that's true. I mean, it's the same thing I guess our parents went through with, they grew up with TV just being invented essentially, and then turning into what we were able to have and ultimately get from. I know we grew up with 5 channels, but I also remember being a teenager when cable came out, and all of a sudden we had 40 channels. So that was huge, and it was I guess they had to figure that out too. And video games became more popular through that time, although very archaic. It was still something that was taking up a lot of kids' times, and parents had to try to learn to mitigate that. And I remember that, like I said, I'd get kicked out. Like, all right, inside time, cool, now get outside. So I felt like that's how they were doing it with me. I feel like I want to do the same with my child. Everybody can do as they want and raise their kids the way they want. But you're right, we find a way to kind of just, acquiesce to whatever kind of is happening within our country. And as things change and as obviously we progress, we're going to get to the point where this kind of stuff is going to be, you're right, not something that's going to really be looked at as even being a problem at all, because this is just, we're used to
not immediate.
Up with this. Exactly. This is what this is, and there's so many of them. I mean, the thing that really gets me the most now is, like, for me, wasn't MySpace Facebook. I mean, didn't they do pretty much the same thing? Did Facebook just do it better, or what? You know what I mean? Like, I felt like it was kind of the same thing, right? It's pictures, little description, stuff like that.
It's a hair split. I think it's a hair split on that one, because what MySpace focused on at the time was giving you a few different functions, which were very, very popular at the time. So you've got your page, and then putting your icon up there was a big, massive thing. But then having the ability to have top friends, which would kind of slide, which I didn't find out for a long time. People actually saw you do that when you did it. Like, oh shit, I was number 3 yesterday. Now I'm 8. What's up with that? Like, you had that, and then you also had the ability to sort of have like a jukebox playing on your page. But you didn't just click a button and have that shit happen. You had to go through like a small programmer knowledge base in order to figure out how to embed that into your page. Like, I remember having to learn code on MySpace, and I was like, oh shit, I'm a programmer now. Like, and it made you kind of feel in loop with that. But then I was like, I'm sick of doing this. I don't want to do this. Like, I would just tell people, yo, how do you cut and paste this so I can make my page look cooler? But Facebook sort of came right in the end of that, and I think really what they did was they just sort of found a bigger way to take what MySpace did and then let that explode into them, because they basically went from you couldn't play music, but you could post all the pictures you wanted, and there was I think there was like knock knock or some poking shit at the very beginning of Facebook. It seems so archaic now.
Like somebody poked me. I'm like, I've been poked.
Right.
What does this mean?
Very odd. It still happens.
Are we dating now? What does this mean now? The poking.
Oh my God, I've been poked. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where the split went, but I mean, MySpace, my page is still up. I can go visit it. It's really crazy to see. Totally still up. Yes, because what they did was they turned it into like a music page for people to basically just spread their music out. So it was like a free place to put all your music and stuff like that. So they didn't kill anybody's page. As long as you went up there every few years and logged in, you'd be all right. And I still remembered all my shit. So my MySpace page is still alive, which is crazy. But yeah, I don't know how Facebook got the power they did, but obviously we know right now they did, because a great portion of that Social Dilemma show is about how they monetize things and how your time, whether you know it or not, is costing you. Because if you want to be able to see certain things and have certain things, they actually choose what you see. Like, a lot of people think that, oh, look, my timeline is based on what I click. Well, that may be partially true, but more true than that is the fact that when you're on YouTube and stuff like this, they try and feed you stuff. So they automatically put in your line of key lime pie, they throw a cherry slice in there, and like, yeah, I don't like that. And that shit passes by you like 6 times, and the 7th time you're like, dude, I'm gonna try the pie. And you bite it, and they're like, we got you. And so then they start feeding you other information and giving you suggestions based on that. And it's a very, very psychological thing that I don't think a lot of people grabbed onto at first. And either that, or like you said, acquiesce. We found a way to just say, whatever, let them do it. Let them take my knowledge and my pictures and use them for advertisements in Beijing or some shit. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, how can you fight it? That's the problem right now. Like, besides like what you said, not getting on there. At this point, if you've got a Facebook page, you need to singularly delete every single page and post and picture before you delete your profile, before you can erase any of that. And that's not even a guarantee that it's gone. Yeah. It's crazy.
It is. I mean, and with what it's expanded to from that, even, I mean, there's, Facebook, Instagram, fine, Twitter, great, but Snapchat, TikTok, I don't get these. I know I'm too old, I guess, to understand this, but I don't know what's happening here. What is the? I mean, Snapchat's like, there's pictures, but they're only there for a little bit. I mean, that seems like you're inviting people to do things that you're not supposed to do. This is like telling you, hey, dude, put whatever you want out there, because that's just going to disappear soon and it's all good. You're asking kids to send stuff that they probably shouldn't be sending to each other. That's all I'm thinking. Hell with it. I mean, they're probably having a great time with it. I mean, where the hell was that when we were kids? But still.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We grew up, and I don't know if it's because of it's a South Florida thing or where the time, blah, blah, blah. It could be a million factors. But we grew up where, and I know myself, because, our friends don't have a lot of pictures of me, but a lot of people as a whole didn't necessarily want their picture taken unless they were asked, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, so the whole candid thing was odd to deal with. But now we see people who are purposely taking pictures of themselves, the selfies, all these other things. And to me, it seems to be, it's such a vain thing that I could never really like. And I've taken selfies before. I mean, obviously, this isn't something that I'm like, oh, dude, I could never do that. It became normal for the world, but not necessarily me or anybody, that I know. But it's just those weird little actions, like a lot of those things, TikTok, Snapchat, that has to do with putting yourself out there and performing. Doing a song or a dance or doing some shit or flicking your nipples and doing a twirl or some shit, like, and there is a lot of nipple flicking, trust me. There's a lot of sexualizing of it too, which a lot of people sort of gleam over, but it's, I don't want to badmouth any specific social media place, but I go to one specific one and hit a button to look for something, and automatically there are pictures of young girls like dancing and obviously sexual. I mean, it's just like, come on, dude. Like, I don't need to see this. Like, I'm just trying to like go to a search engine on this app and maybe look for something else, but automatically things start populating because they want you to see stuff. But I'm just like, God, man, like, and I understand, I like, the female form like any other dude, but at the same time, my God, dude, like, it's this one particular platform is just thrown in my face, and I'm like, I can't even mess with it anymore. As annoying as Facebook can be, this one in particular, it's just like, dude, come on, that girl's obviously not 18 years old, flopping around, blah 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 blah, and it's not naked, nude, or anything like that. But come on, dude. Right. Come on, dude.
if I'm dad, I'm not going to be too thrilled about that. Come on now, really?
No, dude, thank you. That's exactly what I mean, dude. If you're dad and that's your kid, you're like, dude, no, that's not going up. Like, and I imagine there's going to be a time in your life where maybe your kid, you're going to be like, dude, no way, there's no way that's on the internet right now. Take that off, take that down. And then, so there'll be that kind of conversation because your child can get on the internet as fast as you and I just did.
No, of course. Right, also be able to have an account, and maybe an account that, I don't know about. So, I mean, I'm sure
way more friends.
Yeah, right. There's plenty of way more friends. So I'm going to know any of them, but you're going to have a whole lot of them.
Yes.
99% male. Yeah, I get it. I mean, and it's something that I feel like I'll have to, keep a pretty close eye on. But at the end of the day, hope that, my daughter just makes good decisions. What are you going to say? I don't put anything against women, girls even, deciding that they want to flaunt or get dressed up. They have every right to do that, truthfully. I'm never against that per se. But like you said, it's the positions they get into and the things that they're doing. And I understand that it's something that they all do, because that's, at least with TikTok, it's like they get a move and then that's like the hot thing, and everybody does this move in different places, right? That's the best I can gather from it. But some of the stuff they're doing is fairly sexual in nature. And like you said, when a 34-year-old gorgeous woman is doing it, I'm gonna be like, hell yeah. Or even a woman that's not as gorgeous but she's old enough. But when you see the 12-year-old doing it, you're just like, oh, like, no, dude, I'm not sure you should be doing that. And if you did, maybe it should be in your house. It shouldn't be for like everybody to be looking at this. That's just it's probably not right. That's where I feel like it just gets too open. It's too much. Like, there needs to be some sort of, let's keep an eye out there. There's some crazy MFers out there.
It's
you don't
dangerous.
Need watching it that you don't need seeing that. You don't want that. You don't want to invite that, is all I'm saying. You know what I mean?
The normalization, like we say, is the problem, because I think it's a form of and I don't want to get into this big discussion about this. It's a form of programming, because the more they throw those pictures in there, and let's say I'm deciding to scroll through all this stuff, if they throw one out of every 10 that's slightly inappropriate, eventually that it's going to be less inappropriate to your brain. Do you know what I mean, man? Like,
so that's true.
So it's the odds thing where they keep putting stuff. And again, I'm not on that app enough for that to happen, but there obviously are people that are on that app so long for that to happen. And I think it's hard for us, because as a parent, obviously it's something you don't like to see. You want them to be outside. You want them to, go out and spend time with their dogs.
Dogs want to spend time with you, it sounds like.
Yeah. I just think it's a really hard thing to balance, let alone as a human, but as a parent, man.
For sure.
Let me ask you this though: if we're gonna talk about this, what do you think is? Because I could do a fair amount of slamming of the internet all day long, but again, our word won't get out unless we're on it. So, what do you think is one of the great things currently about the internet? What is one of the great things you see now, whether it be something that's happening now that's been a sort of an accumulation of ideas over the years? What is good about the internet at this point in the world?
I think ultimately it's the connectivity of people. Like, not anything more, because the news, everything else that goes through social media is so terrible. But I think ultimately just the connectivity of people, that they have that ability to connect in a way that's different than before. Before, you had to actually decide, I'm going to call this person. I haven't talked to them in a long time, And now there's so many more means of making a connection that could be somewhat meaningful, even if it is just a chat or, something written on a picture somebody posted. Like, you have now a connection you may not have had before with somebody that, yeah, I mean, your other side of this could be, well, if they really meant something or were important to you, to have a closer relationship, blah, blah, blah. But there's some people in your life you won't have like that. You're going to have acquaintances. Yeah. You're going to have close friends. You're going to have family, but you're going to have acquaintances in your life and people that, hey, you know what? There was a time where we were close and da-da-da, and you want to connect with those people. So I think the connectivity of people is probably the biggest benefit, I would say, of social media, not necessarily the internet. If you get to the internet, I think it's commerce overall. But if it's just for social media, it's the connectivity of people would be my answer. That's two answers, even though you asked me one question, but I gave you two answers.
Yeah, and again, I honestly, I can take the biggest con of the internet as the same exact answer that you just said. Because whether or not we like it, or even decide to believe in it, the Earth A is round, and B, that information that we pass to each other, does not belong to us after we let it go out of our hands, out of our email, whether it be clipped and sent, and whatever the case may be, that is no longer our property, and that's a scary thing, man. The scary thing is that our information is all out there. I was probably more paranoid than most people when it came to it, and I've got like 5 Alexa devices in my house now. It's just like, screw it, man. If she can turn my lights on for me, dude, and they're gonna track me, who gives a shit? I'm not doing anything, going to work anyway, maybe hitting a fishing pond, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I guess there's probably another group of people in the world that do not want to be tracked for very specific reasons.
Correct.
But I am not of that cloth anymore.
Right. Yes.
I think that
I'm here. What do you want?
Right. And again, that's also a good mindset. If you were on the other end of this, you're like, yes, exactly. Like, we want you to be normal and cool with this and be nonchalant, because that's what we wanted you to do anyway. There's, it's almost like there's this automatic conformity about the internet that I don't love either, and if you want this application, or if you want to be able to do this and do that, well, you just clicking accept is a long laundry list of shit that we scroll through just to say I accept.
Right.
And if you ever read any of that stuff, it would just,
you may not accept.
You might not. And if you knew what any of it meant, you definitely wouldn't accept it. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
Not written in a way for us to understand.
It's absolutely not. And the protections there are still weak, because that's, it's still a little bit of uncharted territory in a lot of ways. And you see that even with the government fighting with a lot of these companies for many reasons, whatever it is, and the current flavor of the month. But there's always something that the internet giants are doing that's creating a problem in Washington, which relates back to commerce, which I just mentioned recently. For internet, that is by far the greatest part of the internet, is what it's done for commerce, because you don't have to be Walmart. You don't have to be the multi-million-dollar chain. You can get your products to people now. Anybody can get their products to people now. That's the type of commerce, not necessarily talking Amazon, obviously the benefits of that and being able to shop online, things like that. But just going back to being able for the everyday person to utilize this as a manner for them to not have to spend money to get a storefront or do anything like that. They can sell their products right out of their home. And I mean, for me in my own business in swimming pools, it's a problem. Like, I can't do retail. Like, I do everything in my business for repairs and services and construction, but we don't do retail because we can't fight the internet. I'm not going to sit there and fight somebody over $20 for a pool cleaner or a filter. I'm not going to do that. So we knew back in the 90s, we were not going to do retail. Retail's dead. So that's the side that the commerce part obviously hurt, but it is what it is. It's similar to, I guess I just thought of this now, I guess related to the social networking thing, is kind of making human interaction dead. With commerce dying, with retail stores, you're buying everything online, you're killing another human interaction there too. So internet definitely jamming in between people connecting, but at the same time allowing a few more people to connect, just in a different way. So take all that. I just confused the hell out of myself, so I don't know what the hell I did to anyone listening to that, but figure it out.
I just saw a very small little piece about what it's like to work in an Amazon fulfillment center. It didn't look great. I saw how the person who created like shipping and receiving warehouse robots that actually move product on wheels to different areas of the warehouse to put it away. I think Amazon bought that person's idea for lots of money, and it is now a part of their warehouse system. And the battle was like, okay, you took my job and took your job. Like, so it was one of those things where everyone's like, that's replacing people. But their battle was like, that's not actually the truth. We're employing more people now because, there's certain things that humans actually can do better and will do better. But as long as they have robots helping out with the BS work, that it's a little bit easier. So that's always one of those great things to hear. But then again, that could be another way to find a way to normalize the fact that 10% of the jobs of the world now are no longer going to be needed by humans because robots can do that shit. So, to hell with what kind of fuel and what kind of energy is used in order to power those things, as opposed to the fuel and energy used to power a freaking human. So there's a trade-off in there, and those are the kinds of little gray areas I think that we forget about. So we love figuring out how to, we get to A to B, but then the traveling between A to B can be kind of scary and dirty. And someone in food service like myself, I worry about what like places like DoorDash and Grubhub are doing to the earth by having the ability for us to call them and say, I just want 1 cup of soup, and then have that person be able to drive and bring that to us. Like, I don't know. I worry about those kinds of weird things, man. And the internet is making it easier for us to do everything. And that just means we're getting lazy, dude. We were already kind of a lazy nation, right? Like, didn't we lead the world in like overweight and obesity and things like that? Like, yeah, and so I don't think we need to have, like there's things that we want given to us. And then there are people in power who are more than happy to make that happen, and so what we need to do, just like everything else, is see why things are readily available and why things aren't, and then ask some questions. I think people aren't asking a lot of questions when it comes to the internet. They're just going accept, and then you wonder why your face is selling I don't know, bobcat urine somewhere.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why a lot of these lawsuits that are happening at the federal level are a lot of antitrust suits, and there are a lot of things where you were pressing, constantly on accept, but they were going back against what they were saying they were doing. So now the government has stepped in a little bit saying, okay, no, you know what? You can't keep doing this. If this is what you want from people, then you need to be able to go ahead and say it. You need to be able to stand by that. But for us to sit back and think that the government's always going to be looking out for our best interests, I don't know about that. I don't think you need to be thinking on those lines, because I don't think they even know what they want to do. I mean, just the past few administrations have tossed the laws around of how they want to handle this stuff. So there's obviously a lot of fumbling going on, which is most of Washington anyway, in every topic. But still, it's something that, affects every one of us, regardless of political affiliation. So I think you see both, parties going against them when they do things wrong, to at least try to shake a finger and say, hey, you can't do this. As much as privacy reigns true always in our country, there's going to be some level where that privacy stops for one person and starts for another. So for these companies, it's take of our information. But as far as what they can tell the government they're actually doing, that's a completely different story. And what the government could tell what they're doing, that is also a completely different story. And that's why they get away with a lot of it, and why they're trying to rein in a lot of it, which would reduce a little bit what can and can't be done. So is that good or bad? Who knows? With anything else in this world, is it going to be better if the government controls more of it and is supposedly looking out for our best interests? Who knows? In some cases, maybe yes, and others not. They're supposed to be there for the safety net. They're supposed to be there to protect the kind of guy, just the everyday Joe that doesn't know what they're doing and what they got into, and they've been taken advantage of. But in these situations, the way they take advantage of is just by purging as much information as they can from you.
Well, it's just like anything else. I think once groups of people that are in power start getting their pockets hurt a little bit, that's when they start putting resources into motion. And it's kind of like, we still have what people consider the dark web, which is not necessarily like another application that you go into. It's just knowing people in places and learning language and stuff like that. There were places like that before, but when this Silk Road place popped up and became popular, a huge place for you to go online and buy drugs online, there had to be governments and countries that say, hey, we actually make some pretty good money selling narcotics in our countries. These people doing it behind our back is not cool.
Right.
And that's why
Right.
that kind of shit gets shut down. You want to think it's because it's for the good of the people. Well, no, dude, when you're dipping into people's pockets, man, like if you've got money, they'll find a way to make things work and not work. That's how, people pull strings. And I know we're very much on the fringe of talking about some shit that either people really believe in or really don't believe in. But at the same time, like I said, we're giving our information out, man. Everything is public domain now, man. Google your name, Google your phone number, your address, and find out how much shit you can find out about you when you are not logged into Google and you are not logged into some of your things, which is another invasive situation a lot of people don't talk about. Google makes you sign in from all your browsers and stuff. So like all of your search shit is completely tracked all the time. And that goes into a big file of what they can put in front of you to try and sell you through advertising, which is really all we are being marketed as. To the advertisers, we are just eyeballs that are going to soak up their product and hopefully buy it one day.
Right.
And until people start realizing that, hey, because at this point we have to be okay with it. You just have to limit the amount of stuff you put out there. And that's the hardest part for a lot of people. We want to share stuff so much, but you don't have to put your bank number on every single website you shop at. You don't have to log in to all of them all the time either, unless you really need to track some of your stuff. But even then, you've got an email that's almost always going to have something you can track your stuff on. So there's ways to get around it, but laziness is what's making the internet dangerous for us.
That's for sure. And that's with most. I mean, we're looking for conveniences in everyday life. Right. That's what Americans do. We look at how can we make this easier? How can you make this better? It's not a whole lot of new inventions to be made out there. So most people are just trying to make things better that already exist. And that's kind of where we're at now in this country. And I feel like this is something that we really did get to watch grow just because of our age and people in our age group that came and were born and raised without any of this. And made it all the way basically through high school without any of this stuff. And then this was just introduced, and it was kind of something we've been able to watch to this point. So I'm hoping I'll be that senior citizen that at least understands this stuff, and I could be on top of it. Although my mom's right on it, dude. I got to tell you, man. She's barely a senior citizen. Love you, mama. But she definitely, she's on it, man. She knows this stuff better than I do.
Well, Tammy, Sarah, Angel, Andrew, Brandon, thank you so much and for coming and hanging out with us today. And thanks everybody for tuning in. My mom, she has a smartphone, but it just turns it on or off. Like there's no voice.
She uses it for a phone. It's for a phone. That's all it's for.
It's like I'm trying to get her to be like, I've sent her pictures and I know she has them, dude. Like there's no cell phone in existence now that can't get a picture. She just probably can't access it. And it frustrates me so much because she's like, you don't send me pictures. I'm like, oh, I've sent you pictures, man. But like the way that we do that nowadays is not something you're down with. So she's like, well, you just go to a 1 hour photo. And I'm like, tell me where one of those are. Tell me when there's a fucking one up. So at any rate, I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out with us today and listening to us rant about the internet while being on the internet. And then on top of that, for following us up to this point. If you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, please do so. If you haven't followed us on Spotify, please do so. Come and hang out with us every week, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I am Bob. This is Ken, man. We are going to take off right now. Ken, man, you have anything you want to say before we take off, man?
Just want to thank everybody again for joining us. We really like doing this, and every week trying to come up with something new and fresh to talk about. So we appreciate you guys joining, all of you. And then those of you listening afterwards, thank you guys. Stick with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I hear the screams for trying to figure out how can we throw $2 a month at the Casually Serious podcast. We're in the works of finding that out for you right now.
You want to do it.
We know you want to do it. We just haven't done it yet. And I know really that it just costs us subscriptions is really what the main cost of us doing this podcast. And on top of it, it's therapy. So we're looking at it from a couple different attitudes, I think, right now. So at any rate, guys, I want to thank you again for coming and hanging out with us on TCSP. For my friend Ken, man, thank you so much for coming and hanging out, and we'll talk to you soon.